So my name's Stuart Kennedy, and I work for an organisation called EG Innovations. And today's little session is about 5 ways that EG can help you improve basically your Citrix services. It enables you to be able to more quickly isolate and resolve issues, whether they be from the end user via their thin client, via their ICA session, whether it's to do with a XenApp server or anything else in the Citrix farm, or if you're on a VDI environment, whether that be Citrix, VMware View, Quest Brokers, you name it, we support it all, but predominantly we're going to focus on Citrix today. The presentation itself is going to sort of switch between, at the beginning, just a couple of slides, give you an overview, and then set the scene, and then we'll demo the product and show you how we can delve in deep and see what's going on. So just a very, very quick overview. So I'm sure not many of you have heard of EG Innovations because we're not so big in Scandinavia at all and across other parts of Europe. But we've actually been going for well over 10 years. Of course, we've got customers worldwide. We only provide one product, okay? It's a monitoring solution. So it's about availability and performance management for end-to-end across your infrastructure. So we can monitor things like your network devices, Cisco switches, routers, etc., firewalls, whatever it may be, and then going right through the infrastructure from there. So we can do stuff like your chassis and your blades, hardware level monitoring, and then all of the different OSs that you're going to run on those, so Windows, Linux, Unix, etc. Virtually any application that sits on top of those OSs we support out of the box, and then moving further on throughout the data center, so your hypervisors, we support 6-7 different hypervisors, and then going way back to the SAN storage, etc., so we can collect metrics from there. Our customers, some of our customers are tiny, couple of servers, 50 users, but they use us to monitor business critical applications. And then some of our customers, such as Citibank, JP Morgan, etc., they use our solution to monitor tens of thousands of users. So again, if we could, before we sort of jump straight in, have a quick show of hands. Who here, either in their infrastructure or for their customers, look after a combination of Citrix Zen Desktop and Citrix XenApp? So combined. So yeah, quite a lot. So keep your arms up there, guys. What about just Zen Desktop? Far less, no takers there. What about the Citrix XenApp? Got to be the most popular, right? Okay, so let's keep those arms up for one more second. So for all of those environments, put your arm down only if you believe that a Citrix environment, from a user's perspective, is a very easy thing to go and fault find and diagnose and resolve those issues nice and quickly. All right, because from a user's point of view, that's what they expect, right? So they want something that's going to be really easy. They think they can just log on to a system no matter where they are, bring your own device, worldwide locations, and they should be able to double click their applications or their desktop, and it should work perfectly. In fact, it should not only work as good as it used to on your physical PC, but it probably should work much better than the old physical PC, because we're using this nice fancy new modern Citrix technology. But typically what we see is that most organisations who have gone through these kind of transformation projects in some way, shape or form have hit these kind of barriers, right? At least one of, if not multiples of these. So we've ended up with putting all your eggs in one basket. If something goes wrong, whether it's at the VDI hypervisor level or whether it's on a published application level, it can affect lots of your business users. Then you've got the scenarios where you've got the users start to complain about the session latency and the poor response time and the screen refreshes, etc., etc. And then the second one, as I mentioned now, it's complex. Citrix environments have lots and lots of different components. You know, right from the sort of the net scalers to the access gateways, Citrix web interface, you've got Citrix license server, you've got all your data collectors, a SQL backend that's supporting that. You know, the ZApp itself, VDI, brokers, you know, it just goes on and on, right? So anywhere in that environment, things go wrong. And we heard from Citrix on day one that, you know, in the older versions, up to 22 consoles to go and look at and find things. But really, those 22 consoles are all about administration, predominantly. They're not about fault finding. So when you want to go and fault find an issue for a user, you know, you're going to have to shadow the sessions, you're going to have to log on, do perfmon stuff, you know, probably use some nice PowerShell scripting or whatever. So one of the guys did a session this morning. So it's complex. And then, of course, the bottom one is the main biggie that we don't want to get to, which is we start a transformation project. You know, we sized it great. All of our architects did a fantastic job. They did their stress testing. We sized it perfectly. As soon as we rolled it out to the first set of users, we got no end of complaints. The rollout then stalls. We can't move any power users over. And then maybe someone's looking to say, okay, maybe we don't use Citrix as the main platform, and we just provide it for you know, those occasional users when they work from home. And then we've, you know, wasted all of our investment. So what we're suggesting is the major cause of all of those problems is the fact that you don't have an easy, quick way to do centralized monitoring and diagnosis of the infrastructure. And the main reasons for that are because traditional methods of fault finding aren't sufficient anymore, and more importantly, tools aren't sufficient anymore. So the key thing that we're interested in today is how we can use EG to basically help you to do these 5 things. So how we're going to help to rapidly respond when a user calls into the service desk. So users calling in saying, I've got a problem right now with my Citrix session. What are we going to do to help us find that? How can we help you to reduce the time problem to fix? Now we're talking about across the infrastructure, because Citrix isn't always to blame. You know, lots of times there are issues outside of your Citrix ZApp or your Citrix VDI. Citrix gets the blame, but actually, you know, it's a network issue, a storage issue, it's, you know, an issue in the application. And then how can you use a tool like EG, or in fact any other kind of proactive monitoring tool, to enable you to start to understand what your environment's like, what's normal, what's abnormal, and give you these kind of warning early indicators that say, you know, there's a problem starting to manifest in the environment, and if you don't act on it now, then your users will be complaining in a little while and telling you that the system's, you know, completely unusable, etc. And then the final 2, we're going to look at some nice reporting features that allow us to look at infrastructure sizing and aid to capacity planning. So the first one we're going to track is this users calling into the help desk. The first thing we need to know, whether it's a desktop or whether it's a Citrix ZApp server, published application, published desktop. Where's the user session? Then once we've located the user session, what information can we gauge about that session? So again, you know, Citrix has nice consoles and stuff that allow you to find out these things, but typically all they allow you to do is disconnect the user and get them to log back on again. So, well, that's like going back to the old days where we used to tell all of our users to power off their PC and power it back on again. We don't want to be in that scenario. And then how can we delve in and see exactly what's happening with the published applications or the published desktops, all the processes that are actually running inside of that published desktop without remote session tracking or remote desktop into their session and shadowing and seeing what's going on. And then the final thing, what happens in most organisations is they just want to fix the issue quick, right? So if we can get the user to disconnect and reconnect, it's fixed. But then, if we then want to go and look at that at the end of the month or the end of the week or when we've got some more time to investigate what happened, why did it happen on that day, we've got no trend information. So we can't go back and look at it after the fact and see what's been going on. So we'll have a quick look at some of that. So just going to switch out that deck now. So apologies, that was a good 8 minutes there, guys. But we're going to get into the product now. How does that look up there? Looks fine. Okay, so that first scenario we're going to talk about is for the service desk effectively. Your users are calling into the service desk, they're complaining about, the mouse isn't responsive, it's taking a hell of a long time to log on, whatever the reason is, they're not happy about their Citrix service right now. So how can we help with that? So the first feature we've got is, standard kind of search feature here. So the user calls in, so we search our entire Citrix farm, Citrix environment to locate the user session. If the user's got multiple sessions, if they've been having problems and they're getting quick disconnects, if it's virtual desktop, maybe they're getting disconnect from one and then they power it up and they get connected to a completely different desktop. So if there's multiple sessions, hung sessions, they'll all be listed up here on the screen. And this screen gives us some nice, I call it the one-click diagnosis. It gives us, single-click access to all of the information we need now to find out about what's going on in that user's environment. So here's our user, of course. In this case, it's a Citrix XenApp. So we can see exactly which XenApp server is currently hosting their session. If it was a desktop, a virtual desktop, we'd see exactly the desktop that they've got, whether it's if it's from the pool or dynamic desktops, and also which host that desktop is currently residing on, has been provisioned on. And then we've got some access time, etc. But the most important ones are these two at the end here. So we've got this little magnifying glass, and you see this throughout of our product. It enables us to drill in and get more detailed information, call it a detailed diagnosis. So if we click on this little magnifying icon, so now what we can do is we can drill in and get a summary of the trend of what's been going on for that user session. And what we see here is a kind of, what's this one at the moment? This one's about a 5-minute average. So we're just giving you a top 5-minute average here view of all of the published applications, or if it's a published desktop or a VDI virtual desktop, all of the processes that our users running inside their desktop. So we haven't remoted to them, we haven't executed any scripts or anything. We're tracking this information in near real time, as near real time as possible. And what we can see straight away here is, we've got all of those processes or published applications. We've got all of the key metrics we need: CPU, memory, I/O, latency, ICA type metrics. And here in this example, we can see he's got a Java application and he's consuming, 30% CPU. So if this was a virtual desktop environment, the consumption of 30% CPU probably wouldn't be a major deal, right? It's like his own desktop. He's using 30%. Ideally, we want him to be using around 80%, in a nice consistent manner, because we provision the desktop at the right size. But this is a Citrix XenApp environment. So we've got one user using one published application who's consuming 30% of all of the CPU that's available on that Citrix XenApp server. So again, that could be perfectly normal for that application. But as soon as I start getting more and more users all using the same application on the same XenApp server, all trying to consume 30% CPU, then we're going to start to really seriously get some issues. The second thing I'm going to just show you is our little graph icon. So now we can go in and look at some trend information directly from here as well. So depending on the metric that it selects when you click on the graph icon, it shows us either the last 1 hour or the last 2 hours. But what that enables us to do is to quickly see whether that issue has been flatlining, as this one has been. It's been flatlining for the last hour, whether it's been gradually growing from 0 to 100% over the last hour, or whether it was going along quite nicely at normal ratings and then all of a sudden just spiked completely off the chart. What occurred? Also from here, we can then cross-reference that metric with all of the other key data points, key performance indicators, whatever you want to call them, all the other metrics that you will need in order to discover whether this issue is related to the connection, the ICA latency, the usage of the applications, the usage of the processes within the virtual desktop. And as I said, the default is 1 to 2 hours depending on the metric, but of course from here you could then go and change that and look at other values. Okay, so those are two quick little one-click diagnosis tools. So is it this issue specific to the user, or is it more specific to a group of users? Is it something where there's a problem actually on that ZenApp server that's affecting many users? He's the first user to call into the help desk, but within the next 15 minutes we're going to get loads of the other users all complaining about the same similar thing. So again, directly from here we can just click on the server link, and then what that allows us to do is to drill into what we call our component layer models. So I said at the very beginning, EG monitors everything, the length and breadth of your IT infrastructure. So what we do is we present them all in this similar fashion called the layer model. So regardless of whether it's Windows, Linux, Unix, Oracle, SQL, SAP, whatever, it looks like this. And if we can, we start collecting data from the hardware level, so HP Systems Insight Manager, Dell Open Manage, etc., IBM Director, we can pull out all those stats. And then we gradually drill up through the operating system, so you've got all of your CPU, disk, memory type metrics, and then the networking TCP stack. And as we're going through this layer model, we're actually performing automatic root cause analysis through the layer model. So what that means for you is, let's say, for instance, we had a number of users on our Citrix sessions who were all experiencing some kind of bottleneck, whether that be a CPU, memory, or an I/O kind of issue. But all of those users are experiencing that because it's just an effect of some kind of issue that's down here in the TCP stack, or the network adapters, or the operating system itself. So we'll downgrade the severity of the alarms that we're going to generate, the email alerts, etc., that we're going to generate for you. We're going to downgrade the severity of those to focus your attention on the root cause. Go and fix the issue at the network stack first, and these other issues will just disappear. And again, if we have a quick look through here, so as we go up through the Windows stack, of course, you see all of these metrics. And what we do is, we work with the industry, so we work with the vendors, we work with Microsoft, VMware, Citrix, we're an approved product, etc., certified. And we build these layer models, and we configure all of the tests and all of the thresholds, i.e. when you're going to receive an alarm, out of the box for you. So, and they're built truly on these best practice kind of measurements, tests, and thresholds. So what that means for you is that you can quickly and easily install this software, configure it to start collecting data, and just sit back and wait for all of your alarms to come in. There's always going to be the case where you need to tweak some of your alarms because the thresholds are not quite right for your environment, but it's minimal. With most products in the marketplace, what they do is they give you a framework, and then you start collecting data, and then you build loads of rules that say, I need to be notified about this, that, and the other. We try and take all of that hard work away from you, from those consultants, if you like, and do it out of the box. Okay, so that's pretty much covers our point one on there. So let's switch now to our second point. So our second point, what we're going to look at is how to reduce the time from a problem report to fix. So now we're talking about not just about specific users on single ZenApp servers. What we're talking about is issues, bottlenecks within the entire end-to-end service. So how can we map that service and give you a visualization of what it looks like? Again, can we now perform some correlation through the end-to-end infrastructure to try and again identify where those bottlenecks may be that's affecting all of our service effectively, and again we'll highlight some of those prioritization of the alarms, and also the fact that we can track changes in the infrastructure. Often what's happened is someone's made a config change for whatever reason, and sooner or later it has a little bit of a negative effect on the system and the performance and the availability. So we can track all of that. So the way that we do that is by looking at things in this infrastructure health panel and looking at your infrastructure in terms of services or segments and zones. We'll just concentrate on services today. So for this particular user, so I'm logged in as Bobby here, Bob's responsible for 2 services in his environment. So one of them's nice and green and healthy, there's nothing wrong with that, all the users are happy. Whereas the other service, the InfoWay service, has got a bright red critical alarm against it. Right now our users are experiencing a problem. They can't log on, or the performance is terrible. They will be complaining and the service is affected. So if I click on that, I can drill in and get a little bit more detail about that service. So this particular service is a web service. So that means we can actually do this additional step now. We can actually capture some transactions at the web service, at the web server itself. And what we can see here is that the user logon transaction is currently experiencing 100% errors. So right now no one can log on to that web server. But also, quite interesting, I don't know if you can see the colours up there, but it's a pink alarm, which is our lowest severity alarm. So if no one could log on, I'd expect it to be bright red, screaming and shouting, saying, fix me, fix me. All right, it's a pink, lowest level alarm. So we've downgraded the severity to focus, again, your attention elsewhere in the infrastructure. That's where the root cause is. That's where the bottleneck is. Go and fix that first. So again, let's drill into that process or service, and then what we're presented with is this topology diagram. So we can automatically discover these topologies. But typically they use standard drag and drop is a Visio style thing with dependencies, etc. So we auto discover it and then we customize it through drag and drop for our needs. And what we can see in this topology is our users are coming in through some kind of access point network, whatever it may be, firewall, etc. That's all green and healthy. We don't need to involve the networking guys at this stage. Typically we're going to have to start looking at people, throughout all the different silos, all the different teams throughout our operations teams. The network guys, get them involved. No problem with us. So they always say that, right? The web server's got an issue. Well, we already saw on the last screen, we know that no users can log on, and that's why that's got that pink alarm. Now we can see that actually, not only is this just a web service, but all of our users are accessing that web service via a Citrix platform. So here we've got our Citrix farm, our ZDCs and our XenApp servers, etc. And then at the back end we've got the rest of the infrastructure that's supporting this service. So we've got some file and print, and we've got a SQL server, and then we've got these 2 oracles. And now we can see here pink, orange, bright red. This is our root cause issue. We've got an issue in the Oracle database that's affecting all of those users. Let's go and fix this problem first. Let's not involve the Citrix guys or the Active Directory people. Let's just focus our attention on the Oracle box. Fix this and all these other problems will disappear. So now what we see when we drill into the Oracle box, so we've got this standard layer model again, we're performing this root cause analysis top to bottom through the layer, and we can see that the orders table space is currently running at 0% free. So right now we've got no space available in the Oracle table. So that doesn't tell you the whole picture. You kind of still need to understand your service a little bit. So I know that in order to log on, it needs to insert your username into the Oracle table. If it can't insert your username, you can't log on. So currently, right now, this is what our problem is. We haven't had to involve lots of people. We haven't have to use any other tools. We've just gone through, 4 or 5 clicks, and we've got to the root cause of the issue. Go and fix that. Get the database guys involved. Fix that, and all the users are going to be happy. But in actual fact, we didn't have to perform any of those tasks, right? Because it's a proactive monitoring and alerting tool. We want to give you alarms that focus your attention in the right areas. So typically, our users use this alarm pop-up window. Plus, you'll be receiving emails and SMS text messages, etc. But here, it's doing it again, so it's focusing our attention. We've got our critical root cause alarm here. It's telling us straight away it's the Oracle. These other issues here are effects of this. Concentrate on this one, fix this one first. And here, if we hover over it, we can see that it's the orders table space and it's running at 0%. And again, we've got direct access to our little detailed diagnosis and our graph icon. More importantly, in this example, there's a little configuration change icon next to this one. That's telling me that recently something's changed in that environment. So if I then click on that little icon, it then drills me back into the console and shows me the configuration tracking. And what I can see here is that, so someone's gone and changed the table size from 5 gig down to 200 megabytes. So that's exactly why we've got no space on that Oracle table right now. They probably meant to change from 5 gig to 2 gig maybe, but they've made a mistake and changed it to 200 megabytes. Okay, so let's just hit our third example. So the third one we're going to look at is how we can help you to be more proactive, learn what's happening in your environment, and enable you to understand maybe we should start looking at things before the disk space runs out, before the CPU goes off the chart, before those ICA latency issues become crazy and all the users start complaining. And the way we do that is through flexible alarm policies, and we've also got auto baselining, self-learning thresholds, so we can understand what's normal and what's abnormal for your environment. So, most sort of alarm type products, you stick a value in, right? If the CPU is greater than 90%, tell me that there's an issue. But every morning, you get a logon storm between 8 o'clock and 9:30 in the morning where the CPU is going to be higher and the I/O traffic is going to be heavy. You don't want to be receiving alarms for that because it's absolutely normal. So we learn about your infrastructure and we auto baseline and then adjust our alarms based on those. And then the final thing we're going to just quickly look at is how we can identify, recurring issues. How do we go back over time and track those sort of things? If I go to the right screen. Okay, so a good example showing you that is, let's go back to our Citrix Synapse server. So if I go back to our Citrix server, and let's take a look at maybe the operating system. Let's pick CPU. Okay, so here's our CPU metrics. So, as I said, in as near real time as possible, we're collecting these CPU metrics as frequently as possible, and if there's a bad condition, we're going to tell you about it. So if I click on this little details button down here, it's going to tell me the information about all of the tests that we're performing for that processor. It tells me who's performing them, what it's performing in, whether it's internal, external or remote, the frequency and how long since the last data collection. And then on the right side we've got the alarm policy. This allows us to kind of decide when we should send you a notification. It eliminates things like spikes. So if the CPU goes at 90% once, do we really want to receive an alarm for it? No. But if the CPU goes at 90% 3 times out of 5 in a 30-minute window, then maybe we should know about it. So that's our alarm policies. Then we have both minimum and maximum thresholds. So minimum threshold, if disk space is less than X percent or X megabytes, then give me a warning message. And a maximum, if CPU is greater than X, then tell me about it. And for each of those we have both absolute, so those fixed values, and here we can see, so when it's 99% we have a bright red alarm. When it's 97% we have an orange major alarm, and when it's 90% we have a pink minor alarm. And then on the right side we've got these relative thresholds. So now, we can have a combination, as you see here, so we can have combinations of those. So now what we're going to do is we're going to learn what's normal for the environment. So we track the minimum, maximum and average values for the hour of day, day of week over a 14-day period. And then we adjust the threshold above or below that by some sort of percentage to allow us to understand that. Maybe I can show you that in a graph, it might be a bit clearer. Let's go maybe to this run queue metric. It's showing 0 at the moment, so that might not be a good example. Click, click. Come on, don't let me down now. Been good so far. Whoa. Okay, not a great example because, as I say, currently it's running at 0. But you can see, you know, we're learning, we're understanding the peaks and troughs over time, as I said, based on our time of day of week, and then we'll adjust the threshold accordingly. And then, so if that was a major spike between, as I say, a log-on storm in the morning or something, then the threshold would actually correlate and go over and above that. What's also nice quickly inside our thank you, Google Calendar. It's a bit late. What's also nice in our little graphing icon, as I said, so you can, you know, correlate all these different metrics to, you know, kind of overlay them, stack them on top of each other. But what's a nice feature is this little loop back one. So we can go back over time and we can say, well, actually, why don't you show me that same metric, same value over the past 3 days, and let's see what that looks like. So is that log-on storm actually seriously happening Monday to Friday? Or is it the fact that, you know, when our users start complaining, why do they always complain on a Tuesday afternoon, you know, about the latency or whatever? So that's a nice, quick, easy way to just look back over time, correlate information, trend it out to see whether those sort of things occur. Okay, so I'm just going to switch back again. So the next two, actually the final 2 points that we're going to look at are more focused about long-term trend analysis, understanding the workloads. So we're going to be looking at report module and querying the back-end database to extract data on a long-term basis. So in this first example, we're talking about how can we help you optimize your current infrastructure. So can we identify and show you the patterns of usage, patterns of business, normal patterns of business usage on a per user basis, what those users' workload, what stress they're putting on your environment, and of course what the overall resource usage is and the performance you know, across all of your Citrix farm or whatever kind of other applications you may have. So for this, what we're going to do is actually, I need to just, I'm going to switch user. Who do I need for this? Jim. So the first 3 examples we saw there were all about Citrix XenApp, but equally everything I've said so far is exactly the same for a virtual desktop. In fact, this user now I've just logged in at, this is a virtual desktop environment. You can see I've got my VDI Zen desktop running on vSphere ESX hosts. What we're going to concentrate on here is more our reporter module. So the first 3 we looked at were more about the monitor, being proactive, reacting to issues in real time, and going back after the fact to diagnose and investigate what's causing those problems. The reporter module can also help us to do those things, so we can generate, you know, executive views like you see here. So we can show the availability, the uptime, the number of incidents, how long it took to, you know, to fix those incidents. We can show all of those kind of stats on, you know, dashboards or graphs or whatever it is you need. And again, what we're trying to do is make it easy for you guys. So under all of these menu headings here, there's lots and lots of different templates that, you know, should please pretty much anyone in your IT environment, right, from the service desk people to the subject matter experts to management, and even to your customers. If you were, you know, providing this as a service to them, you could even you know, give them a unique log on and let them log into the portal themselves and just see the reports. So as you start drilling into some of these graphs and reports, etc., there's these nice little options up the top here, so we can save any of these for later. Of course, we can print directly from here. If I customise a report or I do it ad hoc, I can just click this little email one and email it to myself or distribute it to the team. Of course, not all of us are experts at back-end databases, so we don't want to be using other reporting tools or making queries to the back-end database. You could do it. We actually publish all of our tables for our back-end databases, so you could actually query it all direct. But you just generate a report here, and then you click on the little data button, and it will just export it into CSV, or, Excel format, so you can go and manipulate it and do whatever you need to do. And of course, most people just want automated schedule reporting, so you set up your reports, configure what metrics you want and how it's going to look on the screen, and then automatically generate those, every Monday morning, first, whenever you're going to your meeting, and you've got those in either PDF or HTML format ready for your monthly meetings. But of course, there's lots and lots of templates here, lots of stuff you could do. So the easiest thing for us to do is to customize them and of course add them to favorites. When we do the favorites, we can publish those as personal or private, or public, and share them with the team. So we're just going to take a quick look at some of those examples. So the first one we're going to look at is a thin client report, we call it. So here what we're going to do is we're going to drill in and we're going to have a look at what the users have effectively been doing in our Citrix environment. Let's just click on that again. So apologies, it is a little bit slow today. Don't know whether that's the Wi-Fi or whether that's us. Is America online yet? Just come on. Come on. Okay. So what we're seeing now is, we configure the dates and times and all that kind of stuff. But we're looking back and we're showing now a list of all of the sessions in our VDI environment for the period. You can see we're detailing every user by name, when their start time was, what their log off time was, where their system was, which Xenap server, which published desktop they were using, which host that desktop was being provisioned on, and then again some of our key metrics that we'll be interested in to help us understand what kind of workloads are the business users putting on our environment, and so we can define, do we want to report on all users, departmental basis, groups of users, etc., etc. And again, anywhere from here, we've got those little hand icons, so again we could drill and get more detailed information if we needed to. But you can see that, just with this simple report, you can start to understand exactly what workloads your users are putting on your environment. So let's go back and have a look at the second one. So our second one is what's this one? A distribution report. So now what we're doing is nice and simple pie chart and a bar chart showing us the spread of VMs or virtual desktops across our VDI infrastructure. So for me, I've only got two hosts, ESX102 and ESX103. But interestingly, on average, I'm getting 15 users or desktops on one host and only 5 on the other. So why is that? Is that by design? Is there a problem with the load balancing? Is there a problem at the broker and it's not doing the connections? Or has one of the servers had an issue and things have been migrated for whatever reason? So, but now we can start to understand a little bit about how that load's been balanced across our environment. So that's quite an important metric as well. And then the third one we can see is a more detailed drill at, we've seen how the users, what users the load are putting on. We've seen what, how that load's being spread across the environment. But now we're getting the detailed metrics from the hosts themselves or from the virtual desktops. And what resources have been provisioned to those and how those resources are being consumed by those users, whether those users are normal users, power users, whatever they may be. And again, here we can now see that actually the 103, so the 102 had our 15 users, and the 103 only had 5 users. But the 103 box is actually consuming on average 60% CPU compared with only 30% CPU for the one with the 15 desktops on it. So in our environment, that probably was by design, right? We've got our pooled desktops on 102 where we've got our standard users, and we've got our heavy hitters, our heavy users with bigger applications, more CPU usage, and we've put those on dedicated desktops on a different system. Okay, so that hopefully covers that one. And just for our final one, we're going to look at a bit more about capacity planning. Now, we don't claim to be a capacity planning tool, and the main reason for that is because we don't do what-if scenarios. So if any of you are proper capacity planners out there, you know what I'm talking about. You can't say what's it going to look like if I add another 2,000 users to it. What is my SAN going to look like if I add another X number of spindles or LUNs or whatever it may be. So we don't do what-if scenarios. But what we can do is, because we've got all of this trend information, we can give you a good insight into things that it says here. How's the load? Have I over provisioned? Have I under provisioned? And give me an idea of whether I'm going to need to scale up or scale out in our environment. So I've just got a couple of reports to show there. We're almost on track. So yeah, I've just got the final two. So this first one is a VM cluster capacity type report. So here what we're doing, so when I say we don't do what ifs, but we do some other quite clever stuff. So here what we're doing is we're looking at the entire resource pool for our VMware estate. So we're seeing what's available, we're calculating what the usage is, and then we're looking at that and we're doing some guesstimation that says, if you were to provision similar sized guests on there, how many could you squeeze onto that box realistically? And in my environment, I can't get any, I can't put any new in. So is that good or is that bad? I'd probably want a little bit of room for manoeuvre so that I'm not under provisioned. But ideally, I want a good density where I'm using up most of my resources, I'm getting the biggest bang for buck. All the bosses are happy that we've sized the environment right. And then the final one we're going to see is what we call a predictive type graph. So we can take any metric, and probably what I should have mentioned at the very beginning was I was at a customer recently, and for a Citrix VDI environment, they have something like 6,000 users on Citrix, and we're actually collecting for them in real time over 3.5 million metrics. So, there's lots of data. Now, any single or combination of those metrics can be pulled up in these types of reports, but most of the templates are already done for you, so you don't have to understand what all of those metrics are. But if you do know what they are, and it's specifically what you're looking for, then you can use it that way. So, what we're showing on this report is we're looking at a host and we're delving into some of the desktops on there. So these are probably our top four. You can do all these top end reports. So these are our top 4 desktops on that host, and it's showing us in the black lines on the left what the historical trend has been. Has the disk space been gradually dipping? Has their CPU usage and memory usage been going up and up? And then on the right side is our prediction. So we can look back over 1 week, 2 months, however long, and we can predict forward over 1 day, 1 week, a couple of months. So these aren't really great examples because they're nice and flat lines really, but you can see over time it's going to give you a little bit of an indication as to when something may impact all of your users, all of your environment in the future. So we're nearly done for time. Not a lot of point in jumping back to any slides. So any questions quickly before we finish?
Could you please show the drill down of the VDI where you show the process that is consuming the CPU?
Yep, sure. So here we have, this is a virtual desktop. So what have we got here? So I've got one user here called Sandy. So we know exactly which desktop that Sandy's using and which host that desktop is on. So again, you know, the user's complaining about resource issues at the desktop. So now you need to get some information from the desktop, maybe even from the host itself. You know, there's lots of different places you need to go and see that. So directly from here, I've got access to that detailed diagnosis, so I can drill in. I can see exactly what that user's doing inside their virtual desktop. I don't need to remote desktop to them. I don't need to shadow their session. Please work. We just need to drill in there with one click, and as quick as you like, it'll come up and it'll tell me exactly what that user's running in their environment right now. So this user's got high CPU usage, you know, they're running at 80% CPU, or whatever it is. Now we can see, here's the CPU, here's the time, here's the process ID, and more importantly, you know, why is that user running, you know, media player right now in their desktop and consuming all of their CPU? You know, they're watching YouTube videos or whatever it is they're doing. And I can go and I can track back over time and see that kind of stuff. You know, what's really unique about the way that we do this kind of stuff is that typically you collect information from components, a Citrix NAP server, an ESX host, whatever it may be. Particularly for the VDI stuff, you know, you could go to vCenter, for instance, and you get lots of stats, right? So what we're doing is everything actually from sort of this level here down, you could kind of get out of vCenter. You just have to configure your alarms and they wouldn't be very good, but you'd get all the performance graphs. So, so all of this information you could get from vCenter. So we're doing this correlation through the layer model. The outside view is what resources have I provisioned to my system and how do I think they're being used. But then what's really unique is the inside view of the desktop. So we haven't installed any agents in the virtual desktops. We're just connecting and using WMI and PowerShell, etc., to collect information and showing you what's happening inside the desktop exactly at the same time as the outside. So I've been giving a tug, way over time, 5 minutes over, apologies. Oh no, bang on actually.
Well, everyone can ask questions obviously after the session.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you. So final thing I should say.